your pitfalls, your lists, and then we can go back and forth with it.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on some, which is good. It's kind of a good introduction here. We always like to just zoom out. Like, let's just like go like 30,000 foot view. I think a lot of coaches, when they're thinking about their upcoming season, they're like, hey, what offense are we going to run? Like, how are we going to run offense? What's our offense going to look like? I would say zoom out even beyond that. And like, what are our principles of play going to be? So if you think in principles, your methods, your concepts become very, very clear. But if you start like thinking from a like, what actions are we going to run? How are we going to get into that action? Where are we going to go after this? Like, if we pass here, where do we go? If we pass there, where do we go? If the ball's over here, what action? Then it's like, man, like, you're going to make this thing very, very complicated. And I actually think conceptual offense can be simpler down the road because your players are going to be able to play through things. When you're running a traditional or like a stricter offense, when it breaks down, your players don't necessarily have the answer. If you go back to principles, you don't need a rule for everything. Your answers are your principles. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering like, okay, well, what are principles of play? I would start with 3: spacing, advantage, and shot selection. That's your flow of your possession. The first thing we do when we get the ball, we create space. Now, when we create space, we can attack space, and that might give us an advantage. Once we get an advantage, if we can get defense in the blender, now we've got a great shot. So now we'd have to define what a great shot is. So I would actually, you want to begin with the end in mind. It's like, what shots do we want? We're not going to get that shot. We're not going to get layups and catch and shoot threes if we don't create advantage. Defense is not just going to fall down and let us have that. So let's get to advantage game. What's the easiest way to get to advantage game? Create great space. So offense becomes create space, attack space, create space, attack space, until we get defense in the blender, which eventually leads to the shot you want. So spacing before advantage, advantage before shot is your kind of flow chart for your possession.
What is day one? What are you showing them and talking to them about in regards to those principles of play?
Yeah, really good. So first, beginning with the end in mind, we would define what the shots we're hunting are. And for us, they're 9s and 7s. A 9 would be a layup. A 7 would be a catch and shoot 3. The idea behind that is if I'm in an empty gym, I can make 9 out of 10 of my layups, right? I might miss one. If I'm in an empty gym shooting on the doctor dish, obviously, right, Tony?
Right.
Then I can make 7 out of 10, right? If I'm a shooter. So those are the shots that we want. So I would start there and then going backwards. I was in Texas just this past week working with a team. We were installing conceptual offense. Before that, I was in Iowa doing the exact same thing. We actually installed offense and defense. With both teams, I use the way that I would use with my team. And we start with transition and dominoes. So dominoes being advantage game. So transition, that's the first way that we create space. Right when we get the ball, we're creating space, attacking space. Advantage game is going to teach us how do we create those shots that we want. So you're working transition, you're working dominoes or advantage game, and then you're training your shot selection. And all of that is going to encompass your skill, which we'll kind of get deeper into. That's a little foreshadowing there, but that's how I would do it. Is I would start with transition as far as the install process goes. While we're designing our transition, we're working advantage game in that same practice, and all roads lead back to shot selection.
Next one.
Yeah. Next one is the skill part. So common pitfall. I was guilty of these, and I have 5 of these right here. Is like, hey, what are some mistakes that I've made or I've helped coaches navigate through? Because you even said it, like, and what I try to do with my job now, instead of coaching a team, I'm trying to save coaches that coach a team all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the sleepless nights, all the like, man, this ain't working. Like, I want to just save all that headache for you and just get you to the finish line faster. Mistake that I definitely made for a long time was not doing enough skill development, like just not understanding that shot selection and skill development is your offense when you're running conceptual offense. Because the difference between traditional offense and conceptual offense is traditional offense, you're running some kind of action, some kind of sequence to create a shot. Conceptual offense, you're running an action, or you're getting to something to create an advantage that will eventually lead to a shot. If you run an action that leads to a shot that you want, that's like when defense really messed up. You're going to get that a little bit of the time, or against a really, really poor defensive team, you might get it more. But against your best teams, like, you just want to get that first domino to fall. And then can we use another domino to activate the blender to where we have defense behind? We're going to drive, kick, share, and space it until we get that shot that we want. When do we use skill is actually in dominoes. Like if we're playing 2-on-2 or 5, me and Tony, or we're like, picture your team playing 5-on-5 and we're neutral, meaning neither team has an advantage. We're not really using skill. Like I'm not using any kind of dribble move. I'm not using any like decision making. I'm not using my shot yet because we're not at an advantage. It's really just like, do we get to an action to get defense into coverage? Once we get them into coverage, now all of our application of skill is there. So I think just understanding what skill is and when we use it. Like skill is a relationship between you and your environment. So my daughter, for instance, like she's starting to fall in love with the game. She can do behind the back, between the legs, and all that stuff, but she never uses it in the game, which means it's not a skill yet, right? Like she can do some things, but she doesn't know when to use those things. So that's what we're working on with her. That's what I would invest time in on your team is advantage game is all your application of skill. So I would start with like, okay, again, zoom out. Where are we starting? How do we play off the catch? So if I'm going to go install this with a team, we're going to start to establish our transition roles, our spacing in transition. And then in the half court, when we're working dominoes, I just want to work on catch reads. What do we do when we catch the ball? Can we make a quick decision to shoot it, drive it, or move it, playing 0.5, 0-second decision making, whatever you call it? But that's going to be like the very first principle that we would teach for our skill development is, can we just make good decisions off the catch? Next layer would be, all right, now if I shoot, okay, we got to work on shooting. If I get a long closeout, now I'm going to drive it. So what happens when I drive? Well, then that's the next phase that we would move into. Now we're going drive reads. I break through the elbow. Now I'm at the rim. Okay, now we got to teach rim reads. Like, what do we do at the rim? How do I know whether to stop, pass, or shoot? That becomes your skill development, but that's all within the framework, within the spacing, within the actions that come from your offense.
The best way that you found to do all of that you just said, or your favorite way, is what?
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. So I don't know, meaning we're always evaluating. We're always trying to come up with better ways. The best way would just be put offense at an advantage first. So there's a 4-step kind of framework I use to teach anything, and it's teach it, script it, read it, play it. So I might teach what 0.5 is to my players. Like that's going to be a lot of instruction and demonstration. Then I might script it. So here's what I might do. Let's have a shooter at the 3-point line, and I'm going to tell defense, close out really short on the shooter. And that's going to be a 7, right? And I'm scripting that. Offense knows they're closing out short, so they know they're going to catch and shoot. And then I'll just flip it. Okay, defense, close them off the line, close off long. So now offense knows when I get the ball, I'm driving it. So we're going to script that, and then we're going to go to read it. Throw the ball out. Defense, you do whatever you want. Short close out, long close off. You pick. And then we're going to play some kind of live game to see what transferred. And we can always go back, right? Like, oof, gosh, we're just making the wrong read. Let's go back to read it, which would be step 3. Then we go back to play it. If it was within like more than, that'd be like a skill development session. If we're in like a team session, I would put offense at a big advantage, which means the blender is activated where we're shoot it, drive it, move it on every catch. Then I would move to small advantage. Can we turn that small advantage, activate the blender to get in the big advantage? And then you go neutral. Do we know what neutral means? Can we get to an action? Can we get defense into coverage and punish them for coverage? So I would just go through that flow of start with big advantage, then go to small advantage, then go to neutral.
All right. Next one is
spending too much time on neutral. It's where we just talked about. So, and that goes back to like, just like the very first one of like coaches thinking in terms of what offense are we going to run? What are we going to do on offense? And everything is, all right, we create an advantage and then we're done. Right. So if skill development occurs within dominoes and the goal of a possession is to get into dominoes and in that with a big advantage shot, then we have to spend more time on advantage game than we do neutral. Because if you're dedicated to transition, if you're dedicated to pace, we actually want to run half court offense less. But I would say most coaches spend 80% of their time on half court offense. But the goal is to actually do that far less than what we're doing right now. So spend more time on advantage game. I kind of went into it of like, that's where you're going to apply your skill, but it's also where you go back to your principles. Whenever we have an advantage, we're not running offense anymore. We're hooping. We get to drive, kick, share, swing it. That's where we really have fun. Those are like the beautiful possessions that you see on Twitter, Instagram. It's not a play. It's the play after the play. It's the unstructured moments where you're playing your principles. Like, hey, where do I go when I kick this? Doesn't matter. Space. As long as you hit a corner, as long as you hit an action spot, as long as you're creating space so we can now attack space, we're good. I don't need to have a specific rule for everything. So teaching your players how to create, here's another framework: create, use, find, and finish. We create an advantage. We use that advantage. Can we find the big advantage? And then are we good enough to finish it? Like, do all of our players have the ability to make big advantage shots? That would be, part of the skill development. It's like, can we get all of our players there? So spending too much time on neutral would be my third one, because you actually want to spend, your neutral. It's running your favorite actions that you want to get to.
And that's where pace, and then also one of the things that, having looked at several different types of conceptual offense, one of the things that drew me to you was the amount of passing, and then also the simple actions that allowed you to create something beyond neutral at a faster rate.
Yeah. Think about your possessions. Like we talk about shoot it, drive it, move it. What's going to happen the most is move it. Like we're going to pass the ball far more than like individually, right? Like I might pass the ball 50 times in a game. I might only shoot 5 times, right? So just getting your players understanding here, common pitfall. Here's what's going to happen. Coaches, as you implement something like this, you're likely find that your players are going to want to drive and kick when neutral. So, all right, no one has an advantage. Let me put my head down and drive. I kick to my teammate. They're going to put their head down and drive. So it's not recognizing neutral, but also understanding that just moving the ball, we call it clicks, like a 0.5 pass, just clicking that ball is going to help you create an advantage, because spacing and ball movement is going to move the defense. As the defense moves, defense is going to break down. It's why ball reversals are so important. But also when neutral, you're flowing to that next action as well.
All right, next one.
Yeah, trying to do too much. And this one's tough. Man, I've definitely been here, but trying to incorporate all the actions that I like, trying to hold on to some of the older stuff that maybe you are running in your traditional offense, or, so like a flex coach being like, well, how do I incorporate some of this in flex? Like you're gonna have to let go of some of those things. I work with a lot of coaches that my job, I guess, kind of shifts between a consultant and a coach. The difference being, like, consultant, I'm just kind of listening to what you want to do and giving you some pros and cons. As a coach, just like with our players, like I'm trying to get you there by yourself. Like I'm trying to lead with some questions, and I want you to arrive at the answer. And I would say most of my conversations around this have turned into more coaching of like, well, if you want to run all these actions, then like, how about we just start with your top 3? Like what top 3 actions are really important to you? Start with one. Like what's the one action you want to see the most? Start there. And then once your guys, girls get comfortable with that, add another one. I think the pitfall is, all right, I've got these like 6, 7 actions that I want to run. Well, I don't know how to install them, when to install them. How do I know when to install the next one? There was always a time in our season where I just eliminated everything on my not yet list. So before the season, we all get excited about writing down all the stuff that we want to do. Once we got into December, early January, I'm like, gosh, I have all this really good stuff. We just don't need it. Like we're creating advantages enough. And I guess that would be another thing. A pitfall would be not understanding the root cause of why your offense isn't working. Some coaches might say like, oh, we're just not creating any advantages off the ball screen. I might look at it and say, well, you're not creating space first. Like you're all crowded in your ball screen, or there might be the standard in which you're running your ball screen might be it. It's not the action, it's how you're running it. And then you might be creating advantages. You might just be taking a shot one domino too early, where we're not turning that advantage into a bigger advantage for a teammate.
Observation just from my own coaching, but I've have the 20 different actions that you want to run. And I don't know if it's necessarily that it might be that I don't teach them all well or teach them equally, but guys gravitate towards. And I think some of that has to do with personnel. And then some of that also has to do with they find success in it and they believe in it. And then that's the thing that they use a lot. And you end up, like you said, pruning. I don't think that's a bad thing, but having the mind of pulling back rather than just adding more. If you're adding more, you're going to quickly find yourself in trouble.
Yeah. So that's really good. I mean, the fastest way to improvement is to eliminate things. In fact, I'll go back to this team I just worked with in Texas. We had a classroom session before going to the court, and I always like to set the tone and just kind of frame our experience that we're going to be together over the next 2 to 3 days. And I told them, I'm going to try to eliminate things instead of add things. Let's eliminate bad shots. Let's eliminate bad spacing. Let's eliminate something from your game that doesn't serve you. That's what the best players, coaches, and teams do, is the things that are not working for us. If we can get rid of those, well, now we have a much shorter and clearer path to being better, rather than, hey, let's add all these things to what we're doing and hope that we can figure this thing out. Next one, I put these in logical, like chronological order a little bit, and it's flowing kind of nice. So this is good. Not connecting actions. Yeah. So this is the way that I would design my offense or help coaches design theirs. It would be, okay, what are your top 3 actions? What do you want to run? And then how do we connect that with a trigger so our players know when we can run that or when we want to run that, instead of saying, all right, we like ball screens, we like, pin downs, and we like, I don't know, zooms or whatever. And then just like, all right, like, let's go run those, right? Well, like, let's give them a clear trigger, whether it's where's the ball, where's the 5, or a certain action can be a trigger for us, or we can use player roles as triggers as well. So like in our community this morning, every Friday, we have a feedback Friday where our members can send us film. We break it down. Today I did a little different, and I broke down DHOs. And so 2 ways that I shared, like 3 ways I would improve upon DHOs, and then 2 ways I would get to a DHO. One is the trigger of when we are neutral in the corner, we get to an uphill dribble handoff. But it might also be just player specific. Sabonis, like, is a great one. Like a lot of your post players in NBA is like, if you get a neutral catch, you're straight into a DHO. So you're giving them just like a very, very clear trigger for the players that are maybe connectors for you. Like, can we connect one action to another of how we're getting there? Common one we use in our offense, driving space, is fan. Fan is now a trigger for us to get into a different action. So we get the boomerang off fan. If that's neutralized, we're flowing right into a step up ball screen, or we're flowing right into a back screen, whatever it is. But we're telling our players when and where we want to use these top actions that we're running to create an advantage.
How many actions did you typically have, do you think? Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would actually answer it a little different way. I would say we had series that we ran that each had actions with them. So Rose series is a common one. You're an expert in it. We had fingers, fan, and follow. And then we had, those are pass entries, and we had dribble entries. So really 3 actions with 2 different ways we could get into it. And then we'd have another series that might be, let's say, like flash game or get game. I call it Zoom. I know my terminology for Zoom is a little different, but Zoom, we could get it, like a get, where I tag, throw and go, or hand back, whatever you call it. We could cut it, or we could split off of that. So 6 might be like a easy answer, but then the cool thing is other things can happen throughout that. Like a zoom could lead to a throw behind ball screen, or a split could lead to a post up, which if we feed the post, we would split again. That'd be our trigger for split. A split could lead to a flare screen. So I guess you could call a flare screen, but that's the fun part. Like we talked about is like, man, like I love flares. How do I organically get flares within what we're already running? If the answer is pretty clear, I would experiment and add it. If it's like, gosh, I don't know, maybe we could do this or maybe we could do that. I think with all these things, it's like hell yes or no. Like if it's not a hell yes, just like we're probably not doing it.
Triggers, you can find out more. I'll link it below. Coach Cascio and I already talked about this. And then if you want to know all of the actions that he runs, then you need to go to savvycoaching.com and find out more about that.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
All right, next one.
Last one. All of these things should be taken account before you start. So the last one is not beginning with the end in mind. If you're trying to build the plane in the air, I think at some point you're going to reach complexity. You're going to get to the point where you're like, gosh, we put in this, and then now my players are asking me about that, and it kind of breaks the rule. So I'm not really sure how to answer that, right? And then you're going to have to like go backwards or make something up, or just be honest with your players and be like, hey, I don't know. We got to figure this out. That would be the best answer. But the best approach would be start with spacing advantage shot, right? Start with spacing. What do we want our half court spacing to look like on every possession? Like what's our base spacing template? Then I would rewind and say, well, how do I get there from transition? And that is how we define player roles. Like, are we going to run the two-sided break? If so, who's running the two-side? Who's inbounding the ball? What do we want our racker to do? Those things should align with what you want to do in the half court. It becomes really, really clear. I think the hardest part is going to be not letting other things creep into that as you start to install things. Like, I would get those in. And all of our courses are designed where we start with like a 4 core layers. And we're building a new offensive course where we combine race and space and drive and space. So Tyler Costin's race and space with my drive and space. We're going to combine those things. Our core layers are going to start with transition, and then space and hunt. Like, how if we crack the shell in transition, how do we play? How do we space the floor? How do we move off the ball? When do we burn cut? When do we hold the corner? Then we'll define our shot selection, our player roles and reads, and then we'll go advantage game. Like, you could just add those 4 layers to what you're already running, and you would have a huge head start on your conceptual offense. Layer 5 is Rose series. So, okay, we don't create an advantage in transition. How are we going to create that advantage with an action? For us, our base, the number one way we create advantages would be Rose. So that's layer 5. And then we just keep adding actions and series and clarity from there.
I get the sense that because it's conceptual offense, that it's very vague. And as you said, because it's vague, it could mean a lot of different things. As a result, they do end up building the plane in the air because they don't really even know what it's supposed to look like. You can do that when you first find out about this offense, or you're even listening to you and I talk. You're like, well, I've listened to 5 podcasts with Mark and Tony. It's like, yeah, you got part of it, but to get the whole thing, you need a little bit more than that. And that only comes if you do it several years. Or you can speed up that whole process by, again, going to Savvy Coaching, and they have very clear. It's great. The videos, you break down things by layers, which I think makes it very easy for coaches to both understand and then teach the layers to the students, as well as video. And you can speak to anything else about that might be helpful.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the plug. Right now, we got a free trial going on where you can hop in for 7 days and get everything. Everything's unlocked for you. But here's where the real value comes. And it's exactly what you were saying, is like, you could listen to this podcast. You could even buy a course, but then you're left to your own devices. Like, then you got to go do it. And when questions come up, you're probably going to go back and re-listen to the podcast and see if the answer's on there, right? Or you're going to be reaching out to buddies of yours or guys that are in the same boat. The real growth and like the transformation for you as a coach is going to come when you combine the courses, the stuff, with the how and the why. And that's what you get out of the membership. You get the community aspect, but you also get the consulting and coaching from Tyler and I, where we walk you through. We answer your questions live. We answer your questions asynchronously to where you don't have to do this alone. Like, you don't have to have questions that go unanswered. We're here to answer all your questions. And we don't have all the answers, but we do have a lot of experience that we can draw from.